What are the latest news and notes you need to know from NFC training camps, and what does that mean for fantasy football and what you should do in drafts? It's time to break it down right here, right now, as we give you the latest updates and upgrades here on Locked On Fantasy Football.
Our Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer, and I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for SportingNews.com. We're working toward our predictions for the 2022 season. Before then, you can check out our rankings, sleepers, bust articles as well. I have my snake draft strategy tips that you can check out, updated every year, rookie rankings. And I will have my famous do not draft list. These are guys that are overrated by their ranking and average draft position. That'll be up here, so you can check that out. We'll break that down in depth for you as we turn our attention fully to draft prep next week. So it'll be a crash course all the way through your fantasy football drafts there. So everything you can need to dominate, we're going to give you. And today, that's part of it. We're going to give you the latest news and notes from around the NFC. So we'll go through all 16 teams, what's going on in training camp ahead of the preseason games for most teams. We did have the Jaguars and Raiders kick off, but not a lot there because everyone of note in fantasy football, for the most part, sat. We saw a little bit of Josh Jacobs. We saw maybe some deep sleepers, Amir White, but not all that much going on in that game, in the Hall of Fame game. So the preseason starts in earnest there next week, and we're catching up on all teams what the latest news is from camp. So we'll start with the Arizona Cardinals, end with the Washington Commanders here in a moment. First, I got to tell you, thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. We are free and available to you on all platforms. All right, I'm excited to break down what's happening, and we need to catch you up on all the latest here in the NFC and how that affects maybe your fantasy football draft board, some players to bump up, some players to maybe slide down, some situations to monitor. We'll start with the Cardinals. Kyler Murray, there's no situation there. He's got his big mega contract extension. He's happy about it. He's in training camp. Now he's got to go to work and earn it. He hasn't quite lived up to it. He's had one big year. It was disappointing last year and for fantasy purposes for sure. But just a couple years ago, he was the QB2 overall for us. So when you look at fantasy, it's a complicated situation here for Murray because there's no DeAndre Hopkins for the first 6 games with that PED suspension. You got Marquise Hollywood Brown. He made news in the worst way with his speed. He sped dangerously on the new roads in Arizona with his new team here. So, again, I wish he was that fast consistently making those big plays. He's a boomer bust player still, but I think he's going to need to evolve into something a little bit bigger here, be a more complete receiver the way that Hopkins is to make up for that production. But what we're looking at is AJ Green can be totally discounted here because Green was a key veteran while Hopkins was out, and they're going to trust him quite a bit as a reliable guy. There's not a lot there. Christian Kirk is gone, so keep that in mind that Marquise Brown has to show a little bit more than just the Hollywood flash. It has to be a little bit more complete here. And that was the concern when you gave up a first-round pick to get him, and that's why the Ravens were very happy to do that. They had Rashad Bateman and James Prochet. They felt a little bit more comfortable about their skill sets overall than Brown. So Brown has a lot to prove, and this does not get him off to a good start here with that off-the-field news and attention. You want him to be buzzing on the field with his former college quarterback. That hasn't quite happened. So buyer beware a little bit on Marquise Brown, especially with Green. And another key player and a target that looks like he's going to be very vital to this offense once again, Zach Ertz. Look at the rest of the situation. Trey McBride, the rookie, is a little bit banged up. Max Williams coming off major knee injury. You don't have Hopkins. Zach Ertz is locked and loaded here. He's got a new contract. He was a free agent. They kept him for multiple years. They're very pleased with what he did coming over the midseason trade from the Eagles. So Zach Ertz, new life in fantasy football as a tight end one. It was kind of fading with Dallas Goedert and the Eagles, but it's really come strong back here with the Cardinals. A lot of circumstances. Last year was the Hopkins injury. This year is the Hopkins suspension that gives Ertz new life for fantasy football value that's pretty solid here in 2022. All right, we go from the Cardinals all the way to the desert to the southeast, the dirty south, and Atlanta, and see what's going on with the Falcons. Well, there's not a lot of buzz on the Falcons offensively or in reality-wise. I mean, they are projected for a 5-12 record, the worst record in the NFC right now. So not expecting a lot. We don't want to attach ourselves too much to the bad teams in bad divisions. But we look at the Falcons, it looks like everything is surrounding the upside of the two key rookies here. Drake London, he was the first wide receiver off the board in the real draft, surprised some people. But Drake London, there's not much else going on with these other receivers. They really haven't stepped up. Cordarrelle Patterson is in a bit of a limbo role between, is he going to transition out of the feature running back spot to help a little bit more at wide receiver? Was he there to help Arthur Smith because there's no one else? So that's a question mark. Elsewhere, wide receiver. You have Kyle Pitts. He's the given here, coming off a 1,000-yard rookie season at tight end. Marcus Mariota likes to throw that position. So Kyle Pitts looking very good, but if you're going to look for anybody else to have maybe wide receiver 3 value, I think you have to draft him more as a wide receiver 5 or 4 if you're in deeper leagues. Drake London. So I think they're giving him every opportunity to be a big role player here for this team. They need someone for Marcus Mariota to throw to. He's got the catch radius profile here, so no one else is really stepping up. It's been pretty ugly here for the Falcons. I mean, Brian Edwards just not getting the job done in the trade from the Raiders. And the other rookie we're going to watch, and you've probably heard him hyped a little bit more. Now we know how to specifically say his name. That's how much he's getting hyped, is Tyler Algiere. He's the power running back they drafted out of BYU. Right now, Patterson is the lead, but is he going to hold up? No one feels like that's going to be the case, that he's going to keep that role. And you have your next back is Damian Williams. He was very effective with the Chiefs, but he's bounced around since and did not really live up to it with the Bears. There's the backup behind David Montgomery. So he's fading fast. I don't know how much you trust Damian Williams. I don't think he can see a feature role. So Algiere looking like a guy that can climb the depth charts, and there are a lot of good buzz things coming for his value from the Falcons beat reporters as well. So no one was going to be surprised if he's a lead back, at least on the early downs. He's not necessarily known for his pass catching, but that's one thing. You have to be careful. The Falcons may be in negative game scripts. Are they going to score a lot of touchdowns? That's going to be the concern here in Atlanta. All right, we go from Atlanta, staying in the same division, to Carolina. We're still waiting on this quarterback battle to play out. I think we'd still feel more confident in the skill position players. Really, you look at DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey, you're not really interested in Robbie Anderson the way he's faded. We'll see if Terrace Marshall can have a bigger role in year 2. The tight ends are a bit in flux here in Carolina as well. So really, you're looking for the best facilitator for the production of McCaffrey and Moore. Mayfield still feels like that guy because Moore can do a lot of damage after the catch. He's a very good possession receiver. So Darnold, I think, not starting would hurt Anderson for sure and Marshall. But Mayfield would really help Moore, I think, and McCaffrey. A lot of shorter passes and checkdowns there. So I'm going to watch that carefully. I still think it's Mayfield's job to lose in Carolina. All right, interesting development with our next team, Chicago. David Montgomery has been used more on special teams in training camp, and that's usually not a good sign for a lead back because that's not been in Montgomery's wheelhouse, forte, skill set so far early in his career with the Bears, with the previous coaching staff under Matt Nagy. But here with the new coaching staff and Matt Eberflus, and the offense has pivoted here to Luke Gentry. Looks like they're experimenting with Montgomery in a different way here, returning kicks. That's usually not a good sign. You don't usually have your starting running back doing that. So people are trying to read into it a little bit more. But Khalil Herbert, this tells me keep looking at Khalil Herbert late in drafts. We saw what he did in the limited time. Speaking of Damian Williams, he was way better filling in for David Montgomery last year. An explosive-looking running game that they want with Gentry. They wanted to open it up. So when you look at it, I think Montgomery, is he going to fade into that A.J. Dillon type role? And Aaron Jones with the explosiveness, that type of role? Maybe it's Herbert. So Khalil Herbert is a hot sleeper for many reasons, and this is another one we want to monitor as well. Finally, in our first segment, we will tackle the Dallas Cowboys. A lot of interesting things going on with them. The most notable is this wide receiver situation that has become very intriguing for fantasy football. We know CeeDee Lamb is the number one. When we look to other targets for Dak Prescott, we know Tony Pollard out of the backfield is key, as well as Dalton Schultz, who emerged as a strong tight end one. He's playing on the tag this year. So when you look at that, but Michael Gallup's still on the mend from his knee injury. James Washington, their acquisition for some depth from the Steelers, he suffered a broken foot. He's going to be out up to maybe 10 weeks here. So this is the concern. So no James Washington. Gallup still working back. They moved on from Cedric Wilson, who's now in Miami. Malik Turner is no longer a Cowboy. So who's that leave? It is Jalen Tolbert. The rookie has been dazzling in camp. All the reports are great. This might be a reason why Jerry Jones wasn't panicking. First of all, again, I think you'll see a little bit more 12 personnel with the Cowboys, so that will come into play. But the other thing is that they have Lamb and they have Tolbert. And Tolbert opportunity is looking really outstanding here for Tolbert in this nice passing game with Dak Prescott. So he's been catching everything. He's got good body positioning, plays bigger than his size. So I really like Jalen Tolbert. So hot sleeper among the rookie wide receivers that maybe unheralded. Again, don't look at where a player was really drafted. If you look at Elijah Moore last year, exploding, and he was in the second round. Moore was very good in the Jets offense. He just stood out, making key catches. Tolbert has done the same here for Cowboys. So we're going to watch him with great interest in the preseason, watch the health of Gallup here. But Tolbert, either way, he's going to be in the top three with their receivers and 11 personnel. And he's looking really good for that role with Washington out of the picture. All right, there you have it. There's a look at the Cowboys wide receiver situation. We do have 11 more teams to talk about here in the NFC and what their news and notes mean here for fantasy football in 2022. Before we dive into the next wave of teams, I got to tell you about one of our exciting new sponsors here. It is Dave. Level with me. We've had some financial difficulties at some point in our life for all of us. We've been a little bit short on cash. Maybe you can only afford to put a few gallons of your gas in your tank, or you got another save the date and you're wondering how are you going to afford a gift for that wedding. That's where Dave can help. If you're living paycheck to paycheck or struggling to make ends meet, it can be really stressful when unexpected expenses come up. Now Dave can help you get out of a pinch when you really need it. Hindsight is 2020 and you can't change the past, but what if you can get a little help from your future self? Maybe you'd like to ask to borrow a little cash. Well, now you can with Dave. Dave is the banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. That's more money to fill your tank, buy that wedding gift, or just catch them on bills. You can finally tackle those expenses that have been stressing you out without any hangups. There's no interest and no credit check needed. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to get the financial relief they need with extra cash. So if you're in a pinch and need some extra help, download Dave and think of it as a helping hand from future you. Download the Dave app. That's D-A-V-E, the Dave app from the App Store right now. That's D-A-V-E, Dave. Sign up for an extra cash account and get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve. Member FDIC. Dave, future you will thank you. All right, it is the time to continue the show looking at the latest NFC news and notes out of training camp related to fantasy football. We'll go to Detroit, and we'll go from Dallas to Detroit here to start our next segment. Jared Goff still holding the fort as the starting quarterback, so we'll see how that plays out, but still no competition there. He's the guy. We want to push it down the field with Jameson Williams in the mix, DJ Chark. We want him to be a better facilitator than he was last year and get more guys involved in Amon-Ra St. Brown. We'll see how that plays out. Jackson is your new running back. That is Justin Jackson. So he's joined DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. So interesting pickup there of the former Chargers back up to Austin Eckler. So he's in the mix looking for a role. Quintus Cephas battling an injury here. They do also have a Michigan guy, Devin Funchess. Remember him? He's been converted to tight end. He's in the mix there behind TJ Hawkinson. So I don't think Funchess is going to make the team, but a little bit of a flyer there. So really, when you look at the wide receiver pecking order, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown being a key target returning in the slot. Jameson Williams getting used to it as that big play threat on the outside. DJ Chark coming back on the mend from that ankle injury with the Jaguars that cut his season pretty short last season. So really, Amon-Ra St. Brown and TJ Hawkinson look like the key targets on this team. But again, don't overdraft anyone because, again, this Lions offense is looking pretty diverse. You have Swift catching passes and the offensive line being very good. I think they have some opportunity to put up some points by the passing game for fantasy. For the Packers, a lot of wide receivers have been hurt. Sammy Watkins, they haven't been able to get him on the field for consistent reps here in his first year with the team. You also have the rookie Christian Watson not being able to get on the field. That's important because you want to get on the same page with Aaron Rodgers for him to trust you and throw to him. But one guy that Aaron Rodgers has loved, where art thou, Romeo? Romeo Dubes is making plays all over the field for the Packers. It is the Dubes show here. So a lot of vacated targets we know here without Devontae Adams, without Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Watkins, he's just been a guy of late. And he's been in crowded mixes before. Al Lazard is a guy that Aaron Rodgers really trusts. But who's next? Well, Dubes is getting all those key reps and work with the offense that Watson should have been getting. So maybe we've been focusing on the wrong rookie here. We'll have to see how it plays out. We also have Amari Rodgers in the mix, Randall Cobb. So it's going to be a hard Packers pecking order to figure out. Robert Tonyan missing time on his recovery in training camp has also opened the door for other receivers to step up here. So Romeo Dubes, the buzz is real. Kind of like Jalen Tolbert, we have to be monitoring him. I think Tolbert I like a lot better because there's a lot less competition there, but Dubes on the radar for sure. For the Rams, we've gotten some weird commentary from Sean McVay again. He said that Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson, he considers him the starting running backs. Well, he didn't say it exactly like that, but he considers both of them starting running back material. That's not always too much to read into, but Cam Akers still figures to be the lead back. I think what he's saying is that Henderson, they're comfortable with him as the backup, and kind of if Akers goes down, then Henderson's going to get the full workload. So it's an interesting situation with the Rams. They're not the committee approach team. They're the one guy who's healthy that we like the most is going to get the touches. Then the second guy we like healthy that we like this second most is going to get the touches, but they're not going to cross over much. And we saw that last year. Healthiest back gets the most touches. Maybe you'll see if the second back is a veteran, the way that Sonny Michel was last year, you get the work. But basically, Henderson is a very strong handcuff for Akers at this point in time. Now, there's some concerns about Van Jefferson and his health. He's been battling a knee injury at wide receiver. But behind Cooper Kupp, the real story has been Allen Robinson. They're ready to feature him all over the field and give him some big opportunities in the red zone. Odell Beckham Jr. is not there. You don't have much veteran help. Jefferson's still trying to put it all together here. Robinson, de facto extra tight end with his size, but he's going to get a lot of favorable coverage again from Cooper Kupp. He's going to be interested. He was not motivated last year with the Bears. So all the stuff about Allen Robinson being a solid wide receiver too, absolutely true. Take it. I think he has a big rebound year. Too good of a situation with the right offense with Matthew Stafford playing off Kupp to not be successful without a lot of competition for targets, quite frankly, in Los Angeles. We go to the Vikings. There are some things that we're sorting out with Kevin O'Connell, formerly of the Rams. He's now their offensive-minded head coach, so he's thinking about opening up the passing game quite a bit. This could be good for all their peripheral weapons there after Justin Jefferson. Adam Thielen fading a little bit. He's been more of a red zone threat purely the last two seasons and really not been able to stay healthy to deliver elsewhere. So there are some opportunities behind Jefferson and Thielen here. Irv Smith is one of them who can get them. They really liked what he was going to do at tight end last year. I know it was a different offense than Tyler Conklin kind of got that production with Smith going down for the season. So we'll see that and see how much they keep Irv Smith on the field. He's a very good blocker, so I figured that's going to be a good case for him as they keep the offense pretty open. They have featured tight ends pretty carefully with the Rams, but there have been flashes there with more so than with Tyler Higbee than Gerald Everett. So Irv Smith, you have to keep that in mind. It hasn't been a big part of what O'Connell has seen with McVay, but Smith is too talented not to keep him on the field. Now, there's also an interesting battle kind of developing behind KJ Osborne there. You have Jalen Naylor. I really like this kid out of Michigan State. He made a lot of plays. I was like surprised when he went a little bit lower in the draft, couldn't push up his stock there before he entered the NFL. But Jalen Naylor making some plays here. So this could be a wide receiver 3 by committee. So if we're looking for value with Osborne, keep in mind Albert Wilson is also there. So I think you have to look elsewhere. But Jalen Naylor, a little bit of a name to put on the radar. Not quite what we look at with Tolbert and Dubes, but someone there that has some interest for sure. We go to the next team. It is the New Orleans Saints. Alvin Kamara update. His court hearing has been pushed back, so no suspension really can come down too early here with him, so he might be avoiding that. So draft Alvin Kamara as you normally would there as an RB1 for the time being. Michael Thomas, we've all been down on him in fantasy. Part of it is you have Chris Olave and Jarvis Landry cutting into the targets there with James Winston. But he looks like Michael Thomas of old from all reports in training camp. So we'll see. I know they want to be more aggressive and make it a deep ball offense, but don't sleep on Michael Thomas going back to his old self as a short-term immediate receiver. You have another developing situation with Taysom Hill. He's battling a ribs injury, so he's fading. He's a backup tight end to Adam Troutman in that situation at this point. So Jameis Winston in the passing game, I think they're going to really commit to that with Pete Carmichael and Dennis Allen without Sean Payton there. Now let's move to the next team. It's the Giants. This is the last team we'll cover this segment. Saquon Barkley, from all reports, looking good, but that's what we always hear. He looks healthy. The durability and staying that way and being healthy in this offense, but we know it's going to be probably more pass happy with Brian Dable and Mike Kafka. So Barkley's going to have to get a lot of it done in the receiving game and staying healthy here. So that's the only question with Barkley. When he's on the field, he's been pretty good, but you can't trust him to do that. So that's the thing we always are dealing with in fantasy football. I don't know what you're going to get at the wide receiver core at all. I mean, Kenny Golladay was a severe disappointment. You think his profile would fit better in this Dable and Kafka offense, but we don't know what you're going to get from Daniel Jones. Sterling Shepard is always an injured guy. Kadarius Toney we're excited about, but can they build on it and really use him well here in that Tyreek Hill light role? And Kafka should know, coming from the Chiefs and Dable, can they turn him into a hybrid of Hill and Stephon Diggs? We'll have to see. Again, Daniel Jones is a big wild card in that. It's a lot different when you have Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen operating. But Wan'Dale Robinson, the rookie out of Kentucky, he's a little bit redundant with his skill set to Toney, but he's been versatile. They've been trying to use him in a variety of ways. So my problem is I like some things around the Giants' passing game and the running game, but how much do I want to trust on them? It seems like a team you want to avoid. I think it's going to be a bit defensive-minded if they're going to win some games here in 2022. All right, that takes care of a look at 6 more teams. Now we'll close with 5 more teams with their latest NFC news and notes here on Locked On Fantasy Football. So we will do that. I will tell you more about BetOnline. It is football season again. We have preseason action. We had it last night with the Jaguars and Raiders. So there's games here to get in on in the NFL. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for your sporting wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, it is time to close the show with a look at 5 more teams and what's going on with them in training camp from the NFC, what that means for fantasy football. The Philadelphia Eagles are next to break down here. Kenneth Gainwell is gaining well on Miles Sanders here. I love this guy last year out of Memphis. I really thought he was going to have a bigger role in what they were doing. He teased, but they worked in Boston Scott in some power situations. Jordan Howard, that really made it a full-blown committee. Sanders, to the point, he didn't have much of a role in the passing game or scoring. So a little bit concerned. Gainwell has been getting some first-team reps here. It's a new look at this offense. They want to expand it a little bit more. They have A.J. Brown now in the passing game, so maybe want to have diversified and look at someone who can catch passes. There's no more Jordan Howard here. Scott is still lingering around, so a little bit concerning here. Eagles backfield, I think, is going to be a bit of a headache again, but with tells me is I want to fade Miles Sanders. I don't want to go after him. I'd rather go after Gainwell a little bit later in drafts and stash him over Sanders. I just don't see Sanders living up to it. I think he's had too many opportunities. We've seen some flashes with some big runs, but it just hasn't been able to put together here in Philadelphia. All right, we go next to the 49ers here, and they've had some news. Deebo Samuel has been locked up, and all of a sudden, Deebo Samuel's okay with doing whatever the team wants to win games. Remember, he was like, I am doing this. I don't want to be paid just like a wide receiver. I want some running back value. Then all of a sudden, he gets paid, gets a very good contract here, and he's like, back to use me however you want. I'm very happy here in San Francisco. So interesting. I don't know if that'll play out. Speaking of that running situation, yep, we've heard this coming, and we know it's developing. We can't just be comfortable out Eli Mitchell, can we? I mean, this is a team, 5 seasons, 5 leading rushers. Carlos Hyde, going back, is the one guy that had 2 years as the leading rusher, transitioning in the Kyle Shanahan offense. So Kyle Shanahan, however, has been a revolving door of lead backs. We were all thinking about Trey Sermon behind Raheem Mostert last year, and then the curveball was Elijah Mitchell. So it makes sense we're getting ready for a new one. You have Tyrion Davis-Price, the rookie out of LSU. You got Jeff Wilson Jr. back healthy. So a lot of concern again that these guys are getting reps. They're at running back. It's so unpredictable. That's what Shanahan, plural, have done for a long time. We kind of we saw that with his father Mike when it was not Terrell Davis had gotten to the Reuben Drones and Alandis Gary and Mike Anderson. It just went nuts. He had a little bit of Tatum Bell in there. So this is a very similar situation, like father, like son, with running back revolving door. The frustrating thing is it doesn't become really a committee. They kind of go to one guy as much. So we'll see if Mitchell's that guy. He doesn't catch passes, which hurts. So someone's going to have to be involved in that capacity, and that's where maybe Deebo and his hybrid role come into play here, and Davis Price. And so a lot of confusion there. But I still feel okay with Elijah Mitchell for now until otherwise as the lead back here for the 49ers. Just be buyer beware on him as an RB2 and don't invest too highly. Maybe back end RB2 there. But every week play, we're hoping, but the situation doesn't give us a lot of confidence. All right, we go to the Seahawks, and looks like Geno Smith is legitimately leading this quarterback battle over Drew Lock. I don't know if they're trying to make Drew Lock earn it straight up, but that's not good news for DK Metcalf. I mean, Lock at least has the big arm. Metcalf has that new big contract as well. It looks like all these quarterback, non-quarterback wide receivers are getting paid a ton here. So not a surprise. Over Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill, they had to move to teams where they could manage those salaries. Well, these teams don't have that quarterback to pay. That's what you've seen. Samuel and, well, to some degree, they're going to move on from the Jimmy Garoppolo contract. The Seahawks certainly don't have that after not having Russell Wilson on their roster. So Geno Smith probably will help Tyler Lockett a little bit more because he's a slot intermediate guy, and probably will help Noah Fant a little bit more. Tight end if Geno's the starting quarterback here, because again, Fant, I think, felt a little bit better with Teddy Bridgewater than Locke last year, because Locke, again, is a big arm guy, but not have the accuracy, and Teddy Bridgewater is a short intermediate guy. Similar here, Geno just lesser than Teddy Bridgewater. So a little bit frustrating there, but this tells me the Seahawks are going to be run heavy. We saw the big injury to Chris Carson catching up to him to the point he retired. Rashad Penny right now would be your lead back. So a lot of Penny, a lot of the rookie Ken Walker right now, because again, the passing game in Seattle, unfortunately, with guys such as Metcalf and Lockett and even D. Eskridge and Freddie Swain, looks like very limited here, with Geno potentially really starting here in Seattle. All right, 2 more teams to talk about. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Unfortunately, a big injury for the Bucs. Big blow here. Ryan Jensen was so excited. He signed right away once Tom Brady unretired, the venerable center for the Bucs. Well, he looks like he's going to miss multiple weeks with a knee injury. There's a concern that it could be a season ender here for the veteran, former Raven. So, yeah, that's a big blow. I mean, this is a very good offensive line. Jensen is line caller here. Very good pass protection with Donovan Smith. And on the other side with Tristan Wirfs, of course, an elite right tackle, but they've lost some. Got it up front a little bit. Their Ali Marpet retired. Alex Kappa leave here. So some big hits on this offensive line that they're trying to recover from. So something to watch. Maybe with the running game, Tom Brady can work around it because he's got the tackles and gets the ball quickly. But the running game might be more effective than you think here. And battle still developing there with Rashad White getting a key role behind Leonard Fournette. In the passing game, they've added some bodies here. Kyle Rudolph at tight end. You've also added Julio Jones there for Tom Brady. So making it a little bit more confusing. But the one thing that stood out in camp that Russell Gage has really embraced that third receiver. And look, Julio was the late addition as the former Falcon, and he went through the Titans. I know that, but Gage was a pretty quick re-sign, or I'd say new sign here behind Chris Godwin with the knee injury coming back, and Mike Evans and Antonio Brown melting down and leaving the team. He's bumped up the depth chart pretty quickly over those guys they had before, Cyril Grayson and Scotty Miller and Jalen Darden and Tyler Johnson. He's been pretty quick to do that. And Russell Gage really settling in as the number 3 receiver. They really like what he's done. Todd Bowles even said that Russell Gage, in total coach speak, was uncoverable at camp. Okay, we'll see that. But he's getting the key reps there behind Mike Evans as Godwin is getting healthy here. So look at that. I think Russell Gage, don't read into much of this. Russell Gage is the key guy over Julio Jones at this point, and Brashad Perriman, anyone else, all those receivers we mentioned. He's done that, and he's been in the offseason program the longest here, more so than Jones. Jones is going to be a situational guy. They'll use him in the red zone, occasional chances to stretch the field, but he's going to get limited snaps, where I think Russell Gage will get the regular snaps and the regular targets in this offense. So will, I think, Cameron Brate. I mean, Kyle Rudolph was signed. They're getting some depth here. There's some buzz about Cade Otton, but he's a rookie. Rookie tight ends don't typically deliver. So Cameron Brate is still a solid sleeper here. He's going way low in the tight end 2s here. He's going to get a lot of red zone looks from Tom Brady trying to replace Rob Gronkowski. Finally, we're on to the Commanders, and Carson Wentz has been up and down. There was an incident in camp where Terry McLaurin was covered by a linebacker, and Terry was frustrated because Carson Wentz didn't get the ball to him. So that's sometimes what Wentz does. He doesn't play within the framework of the offense or what's open. He'll kind of do his own thing, and that's what's frustrated coaches both with Philadelphia and Indianapolis, and might creep in here to Washington. But they're hoping at least he's an upgrade from what they had with Taylor Heineke and being able to get the ball to the playmaker. So we'll see that play out. They're very concerned about Curtis Samuel. That was from Ron Rivera, that he's not going to be healthy. And Rivera can say that. He knows him pretty well from Carolina. So very little optimism about Samuel returning to health and having a key role. But there's some buzz about Jahan Dotson on the outside being the number 2 to Terry McLaurin. So good opportunity for the rookie from Penn State to have some vertical elements, especially with Logan Thomas at tight end on the men. So some good targets available there. We're still seeing how the backfield plays out, but it looks like Brian Robinson. Antonio Gibson has to be on a little bit of alert. J.D. McKissick in the receiving role here. Jared Patterson still around, and Brian Robinson. So some things to watch. Same offense there with Scott Turner, with some moving pieces for sure. And again, we're going to monitor Carson Wentz very carefully. It's still QB2 for me, but you just want to make sure he's facilitating McLaurin and Dotson as much as he can. All right, there you have it. There's your NFC news and notes. If you missed the AFC news and notes, that was our previous show there. So we got you covered all throughout the league here on Locked On Fantasy Football. That's what we do, and we'll go into full draft prep mode here for multiple weeks here leading up to it. Hold your draft as late as possible. That's my first piece of advice there with a strategy to dominate. So you have all the latest information, and we're going to give you all the latest information here on Locked On Fantasy Football. Don't you worry. We'll get you there to be the best redraft fantasy football player possible, and then we'll get a DFS as well once the season starts. So stick with us 5 days a week now. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today and every weekday. Now make your second listen to the Locked On NFL podcast. Our national NFL experts, insiders, keep fans dialed with the biggest stories and latest news from around the league, because an offseason doesn't equal a break in the action. For Locked On Fantasy Football, thanks again for listening today and this week, and we'll catch you up next week as we continue our draft prep here for 2022.